Karin Birch, if you don't know her, which I think pretty much all of you do. She works in a hybrid medium combining painting, hand embroidery, and beadwork, creating detailed abstractions that explore texture, color, and composition as a meditation on meaning. Karin has maintained a studio practice in Brunswick, Maryland for the last 35 years, while exhibiting nationally and internationally. Her work is in the permanent collections of the Renwick Gallery, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, and the United States Embassy in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, as well as many private collections. She is the recipient of the Frederick Arts Council 2019 Carl R. Butler Individual, sorry, let me try that one again. That's a lot of words. She's the recipient of the Frederick Arts Council's 2019 Carl R. Butler Individual Visual Artist Award and 2021's READI Grant. I'm going to admit one more person, and then I will turn it over to, I will turn it over to Karin. So let me stop my video. Karin, it's going to be all up to you now. Go for it. Karin, you need to unmute.
Hi there. Hi. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you Virginia Sperry for doing this Zoom for us over this pandemic time. It's been really helpful for the gallery. So I'm going to share my screen and talk to you about the work in the show. This was the invitation, and thank you to Lisa Shira who designed this. I thought it was really beautiful. I've worked on this body of work over the last year and a half. Originally, it was supposed to be in May of last year, but it got canceled because of the pandemic. But I had started with, I'm waiting for the images to come up. Do you know what's happening, Virginia?
I have no idea. It may be just slow.
Okay.
There you go. Whoops. There we go.
So.
It does seem very slow.
Yeah, I'm getting a spinning circle.
Yeah. You are welcome. If you want me to share instead, you're welcome to let me know. Because I have it up, so it might take a little less time.
Okay, let's try it. I wanted to, we're not going to go in order, but the paper ones first and then start up at the top.
You got it. Hang on a second. You go ahead and
get out of.
Yes. Bear with us, folks. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. There we go. All right. So you were saying that.
Yeah, so if you scroll down to the.
Do you want to go backwards on them? I mean, start with number one?
Yeah. And then go backwards for the paper one. Okay, so I had 6 months originally to put together a show, which is a very short period of time to do embroidery work. Usually I have a year or 2 years. So I decided that I needed to do some works on paper. I haven't done works on paper in probably 20, 30 years, a long time. And so I started, you know, with pattern and watercolor and graphite, things that I'm kind of the same, working the same way, but in different materials than normal. And I really enjoyed it. You can move to the next one. So, and then the next one. I had gotten, I got really excited about having somebody else frame the works on paper. I usually do my own framing, that I took them to get framed without even photographing them. And I do photograph my own work. So those two were after the fact photographed. And then this is a third one. These are all 22 by 30 and on Reeves BFK, nice, beautiful paper. I'm using graphite. I'm using woodblock stamps with watercolor and just playing with pattern and a lot of erasing of graphite. And so that really quickly kind of loosened up the work and got some filling in some space. Okay, now Virginia, we can go to the beginning.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me just do it this way. And Judith, if you would mute and stop your videos for this part, that would be great. Okay, so there's the beginning.
So yeah, so this is actually the second piece. It's called Porosity. It's 14 by 14. And I was definitely thinking of environmental issues, soil issues, land issues. And I had started, as I do with all these embroidery pieces, started with the painting using, in this case, wood block that's making these zigzaggy marks in the background and acrylic paint, and then responding to it with, you know, what's interesting here, filling in with beads and embroidery. All the beads are hand sewn, the embroidery is all hand sewn. And so we can move to the next one.
Do you want to go back to the one?
No, this is good. And we'll just go in a straight line now.
Okay.
So this is head spin. My two previous bodies of work, Weather and Embroidered Truths, I had been trying to get at something that I was kind of missing in the work. And this piece, I felt did it. This was the start of something a little different, which is really hard to articulate, but it's sort of dense and loose at the same time. This piece came together very fast in a way of, you know, knowing what to do and how it was going to go together. So it just really kind of felt like a breakthrough piece for me, and just kind of set the tone, I think, for the rest of the body of the work. I'm still thinking about environmental stuff. This is late 2019, and we can go to the next one now. So this is When Roots Speak to the Sky, and this idea of that we're learning about that trees speak to each other, roots speak to each other, and just kind of thinking of that as in a larger way, that maybe much more of our environment isn't connected in ways that we don't understand. So that's kind of what I was thinking about in the title about describing this work. But it begins a series of 3 pieces that I'm really doing a ton of stitching on, which is something I haven't been doing in recent time, trying to not do as much stitching, try to make them not so expensive, not so, you know, time consuming. But they just sort of needed that. And I needed that apparently, because it was, this is now, we're moving into where the pandemic is starting, and the time is opening up, and the kind of need to really just think about things is kind of being demanded. And so these are the kind of where I was when I was making it. And we can go to the next one. I don't remember if this has details.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so this is a detail. And these are glass beads and stitching and acrylic paint you can see on raw linen. And next one. This is another detail. I think about how I choose thread color, beads, the texture, the finish of beads. I think about all those things when I'm putting the details away together. This is Absence. This is another 17 by 17 piece, just intensely stitched. This one I kept coming back to over the course of a couple months, and adding more until I finally felt like it was done. So it really took a lot to figure out, and I think it's fine now. We can go to the next one. And here's a detail. You can see the French knots and the beads and the different colors that are, you know, all close together to really make the surface of this. Next one. It's another detail of the same one. Okay. Next one. More beads and thread. Okay. This is floods, fire, and pandemic. It's yellow is a very challenging color to work with, and to start with a complete yellow background is pretty challenging, and then splitting it right down the middle, another challenging composition. I don't even remember where I started on this one, but it just kept building and building and building, and denser, and another one that I kept coming back to as well. The purple flowers in the bottom are probably some of the last in this series. I've been working with the images of flowers. This 6-petaled flower and a 5-petaled flower, they shown up in work for probably a decade or more. This is kind of it waning out. I do this sometimes with the symbols. I work with symbols for a very long time, and then they kind of just, I think, okay, I need to move on to new symbols. And I feel like this might be where they're waning in this body of work. And things are getting more abstract. Okay, next one. This is a detail. And one more. And another detail, just really, there's a ton going on in this. So let's go to the next piece.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm having to have people admit people. So I'm a little bit.
Okay. So this is called Floodline. This piece came about when we recently got the new 100-year flood plan, or flood line was drawn, and I can see it outside my kitchen window. Fortunately, it's downhill, but this blue line that at the bottom is a kind of, yeah, that one. It's kind of, it's riffing off that line that's out there, not too far from my house. And the piece really takes on a feeling of groundlessness, unfamiliarity, a disconnection, kind of. It looks actually better in the purple is not quite that grayish, and I don't know, it's a hard color to photograph, but I don't know, feels like a really interesting piece to me. Next. This is the collector, 20 by 20. The last one was 21 by 21, a little. These are the two of the bigger ones in the show. It has this watery feeling, and it had just, the painting had these little spaces that were empty, that just kind of asked to be filled, like they don't connect at all. But, and that's why I called it the collector, because it's like a collection of pieces. But it's very, also usually I try not to show anything that looks like something, but there's definitely birds and a fish and different shapes that are very easily amorphized. And it's this kind of watery world. And maybe it's still thinking of the flooding and the flood line. And but it's one of my favorite pieces in the show. Okay, next. This is Glimmer for 17 by 17. I was trying a new technique, kind of borrowed from the textile world, resist dyeing. I'm actually painting, but I stitched shapes of fabric on before I painted, and then painted and then remove them, and that created spaces instead of painting and leaving spaces. It was just sort of like creating spaces a different way, and so that gave some interesting shapes. And it happened that the Mars landing was happening at the same time, and it kind of took on this spaceship kind of quality. And it also, just after some of the work that I was doing, and also where we had been in the pandemic and things, it was just a more brighter time, and it just felt like optimism, and looks a little like optimism to me. There's French knots up in the top that look like they're part of the linen. The beads, there's stitching, there's paint, and all of these works, I think, if you've been watching my work for a while, I think you'll see that there's more attention to painting than perhaps past work. I'm thinking about the painting more. I'm making more space for the painting too in them. Okay, we can go to the next one. This is the one that was on the poster and the card. Tears to the Wind. I really love how that orange paint at the bottom, the way I paint is pretty much happy accident, kind of. painting. We have a train going by, so I'll just wait a second till it stops blowing. Okay. So definitely a lot more painting going on here. The little scared bird, like, I don't know, creature is totally stitched. I don't have a detail shot here, but it's totally embroidered, kind of shibori-like. And yeah, you can see it a little bit. And what I'm calling tears, those sideways moving things under his feet, actually came about because there was like a green blob of paint that was really ugly, and I wanted to cover it up, and I made this tear shape, and that's how the title came. It's just an odd kind of fun piece. There's French knots in it, and beading white, the white up in the top left is beaded, and the stripes under it are embroidery, but much lighter stitching than, you know, some of the early pieces that were very densely stitched. Okay, and then we have one more. Oh, it's at the end. You have to go down to the end, Virginia, after the paper. Yeah. Okay, so this is 30 by 30, the biggest piece in the show. And it's titled Bridge. Many of these pieces, I really did struggle on titles. I often would, I do a notebook while I'm working, keeping track of hours, keep making notes on things, and writing down potential title names as I work. And almost all of these pieces had a half a page or more of a list of possible titles before I hit upon something that felt like just the right title for them. But this one I knew right away. I knew Bridge was its title. This connecting section, this blue beaded connecting thing in the middle that I thought of. And the thing that is and the dark, the deep blue, that's fabric, found fabric. It's natural dyed, very nice fabric. I don't know what the technique is called. I bet there's people on here who can tell me when we're talking afterwards. But so it's just, you know, this fabric is stitched on and its raw edges are loose. You know, it'll probably move with humidity and weather, the frayed edges. And the thing about stitching on a piece that's 30 by 30 is really an economy of how you use your stitches and where they are to have impact and to be able to do enough so it looks finished, but not, you know, not so much that it's ridiculous. So there's that real balance of how much stitching to do, and then these big, bright, kind of clashing orange and teal colors, and I don't know. So it's an interesting piece, and it for me it has a feeling of bringing along things lost, or there's a connectiveness that maybe I'm hoping we would have. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe that. So these are the 15 pieces that are in this show. Maybe we should just.
There's one more, this one.
Oh, right. This was actually in the middle. It's a small piece. I don't remember, like, but it's a kind of a mid-sized piece, but it's all, there's a lot more paint on this, and just in the lower center, there's a small amount of stitching, and it's unframed, and the colors aren't quite right in this photograph, but it's kind of deeper magenta, maroon in real life. Yeah, you can see, oh, you can zoom in pretty well there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So
Um,
those are all the pieces. It was year and a half's worth of work, and it was good that actually, in a way, the postponement, it really gave me a lot of time to work and keep working. I'm really interested to hear what people think, and also questions, what people want to know about. So it would be good to
yeah,
turn on
yeah, everybody,
video
this is a good
and
time, yeah, to turn on your video and to unmute.
yeah.
And if you have any, my apologies if you disappeared and you didn't know you were disappearing, because I have the ability to do that for people. But now, by all means, join us with your faces and join us with your questions.
You have to start my video for me.
I can do this, Judith.
Thank you.
Let me find you. Where's Judith? There it is. Well, I will ask you to start the video. And my apologies, my puppy did arrive and he is getting into everything. So if you hear things that sound like a dog, that's what it is. All right, so from Ann Schaefer, awesome, Karen. These are so beautiful. Haven't seen them yet, but we'll definitely get there.
Oh, I'm going to be there the next Sunday, 12 to 4, the next 2 Sundays. And I've been there the last 2 Sundays, and it's just been wonderful seeing people come in. You know, none of us are really used to seeing anybody. So it's been a wonderful reintroduction to being around people again and talking to people. And it's been great. And you know, we didn't have like a formal opening like with food. I don't know that we'll ever, I'm hoping we maybe don't even ever do that again, but we didn't make a big production out of the opening because it was just the beginning of people coming out again, and we didn't, you know, wanted to take it slow. But being there every Sunday's been nice to just talk to people, and you know, hearing what people have to say and think about the work.
Yeah, from Pat Gosley. She loves the
Hi,
root.
Pat.
Yeah, she loves the root piece. She doesn't know if you saw the article in the Post about Joanne Chory's work with roots, but she's
No.
she's put the link in the chat room, so you can check that out.
I'll look at that.
Okay. Lena's mom. So beautiful, just joyful, playful, intimate, and intricate work. Looking forward to coming in person. So happy to have you in the exhibition Bloom. Thank you, Rula Jones. That's
Ah,
really nice.
yeah, seeing it in person. I do all my photography, so you know, I'll just tell you that it's it doesn't do it justice. It's better in person.
I would totally agree with that. I think that for me, having seen it, I think that the intricacy and the oh, what was the word I used? Now I can't remember, of course. I'll blame that on the puppy too. It's just, it is so complex. That's the word I was looking for. Your work is so complex. You know, I mean, at a distance, it looks sort of like one little thing, but then you get there and you just start being pulled in by all the complexity and the intricacy and the hard work. Linda, you have your hand up. Does that mean that you have a question?
Yes, a comment. One of the things that I've admired about Karen's work is the layering, the combination of transparent, translucent, and opaque qualities of the ingredients that she uses, and how on a two-dimensional surface with three-dimensional texture, she gets such a feeling of depth, which she says the painting comes first, and then the thread and the beads are applied. And to me, the whole thing is like eye candy. When I gallery said I can just stand in front of her work and enjoy it for quite a length of time, because of the depth of the opacity and transparency and the combination of segments, the broken lines, the way that she spaces and directs the broken lines of the thread with the significant shapes of the beads in combination. It's just luscious, Karen. It really is.
Thank you. I like that word, eye candy. It's definitely, I am always making work to entertain my eye. I know that. I want to be looking at something that really just kind of sparks my own imagination in my eyes. So when that happens for other people, that's great.
Well, as a person who celebrates surface texture in the granulation and the reticulation with the shiny surfaces and the textured surfaces, you know that I greatly appreciate what you do, because that's what creates the eye candy interest for me too.
Thank you.
So I have a question. Can
Okay.
you tell me a little bit about, I mean, where did the handwork, the beadwork, the love of working with needle and thread, where did that come from? When did that start?
Well, my mother, who's here, but she's not, we can't see her, taught me to hand sew. Before I went to school, I was making doll clothes. And later, my grandmother taught me to embroider very young. When I was a teenager in the 70s, I was embroidering my blue jeans, and we always sewed. My mother loves sewing. I learned very early, so we sewed. We just did these things. We made stuff all the time. And then I went to art school, and you had to be serious. I tried everything. I worked in every medium, and I came out thinking, well, I felt at age 15, I decided I was going to be an artist, and I always loved drawing, and I drew a lot. And when I went to art school, I realized, the drawing, it just wasn't powerful enough. You had to do something, more, that had more to it. And, worked in all the different mediums I could. And I didn't fall in love with anything. I liked it all, loved it all, but the thing wasn't there. And so I decided I had to be a painter. And so there I was working to be a painter, and I had a 2-year-old in the studio, and I thought I needed 8 hours of uninterrupted time. And it was just ridiculous. And I started sewing baby clothes by hand, and I started embroidering on them, and I thought, I can make art this way. And the first piece I did, I just fell in love with the idea that I could make art with embroidery. And eventually the painting came back into, and it's been a relationship with the two all along, because the embroidery can be too tight and too controlled and too perfect, and the painting, it can be loose and accidental, at least the way I do it. And kind of getting those two to work together, I always felt like it kind of made something good for both of them. And I feel like embroidery is drawing, and that's, I
like
still
that.
I still like it. I
Yeah.
still, I'm still challenged by it. I still have things that I, have yet to do, I think.
I like that concept of embroidery is drawing. I think that's really,
Yeah.
that's a really nice way of putting it.
Do you
So
agree
you
with-
have, I mean, I know you have gardening in your blood too, and there was one piece, and forgive me, I forget which one it was, but it almost reminded me of almost like the Aboriginal way of mapping from above of a garden.
Oh,
The way,
yeah.
it was all set up in either rows or sections. And I wonder, do you think about that consciously, or is that just something that comes out?
I do. Many years ago, I learned to backpack and I learned to read topographical maps. And I have a lot of my work looks at landscape from that view. I mean, not a lot of my work, but it's kind of a theme that's run through my work. And I now think of gardens that way too. Like, sometimes I'm kind of thinking like I'm designing a garden while I'm, painting and stitching. I mean, not literally, but kind of a similar. My gardening influences my art, and my art they influence each other. I think they're very similar. I don't know if you all know that there was a very nice Q&A in the Frederick News Post today with Lauren LaRocca, and this is one of the things we talked about. So that's something to check out too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I had I just remembered that, and I had meant to mention it. Yes, so if you can
Yeah.
get into the Frederick News Post and look for that. Any other questions?
Could I ask a technical question?
Mhm.
You often work on linen,
Yes.
and you say the painting comes first. Do you stretch that painted linen and use the stretcher as kind of like an embroidery hoop
Yes.
when
Yeah.
you go into the stitching and beading?
Yeah. So I'm stretching on a stretcher just like a painting would be. I don't size or prime the linen, and I do stain painting, just soaking right in, and that's so it's easier to stitch. Linen has more spaces in between the weave than canvas. Canvas is much tighter, and also paint tends to sit on the surface of canvas more and soaks into linen better. So like canvas stitching, the paint could flake off, which doesn't happen with linen. So those are things I learned really early on, and I've just always used linen since then.
So the size of the paintings, the larger ones that you do, the cloth, by the very nature of it stretching, is going to have more give.
Yeah, it doesn't really have too much.
More taut.
There's pretty taut, and with linen, the nice thing about linen is if you do stretch it, you get it wet and it tightens right back up. So it's not really noticeably loose.
So the
And-
larger size does not influence the intricacy of the placement of your French knots, your beads, and your stitches.
No, it does, because at 30 inches, it's hard to reach behind. For my smaller pieces, I've got this arm that holds the canvas, and I can use both hands, and it's very ergonomic for my back and my neck and my arms, all that. But the bigger pieces, the 30 by 30, I basically lay flat between two tables and work. So, it's really hard to get into the middle stitching, and it's just terrible posture making them. So.
I just saw the Sistine Surround celebrating Michelangelo, so I can appreciate the discomfort of your posture.
Yeah, I don't go to that
Having
extreme.
heard the narrative of him painting for 5 years
Yeah.
on his back.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting though, Karen, because actually I was curious about that. What does it look like when you're actually working? So you're working, it's either, sort of, I mean, it just feels whole body to me, like you are putting your
Yeah.
entire body into this
Yeah.
experience. You're not just doing
Yeah.
just a few little things, like
Yeah.
embroidery
It's
right
de-
here. It's really full body.
yeah. Especially the bigger ones. And it's working with both hands, which is, you know, potters work with both hands. I, at one point did pottery, ceramics, and, I don't, a lot of, work. I remember when I was younger, like actually sitting on my left hand to draw, or sitting, I always paint, one-handed works, like I had to sit on a hand, but I definitely, it's very natural to use both hands to me working. I don't know.
Kathy says this makes me think of quilting frames supporting hand stitching.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't have a picture to, I mean, I don't have, it would be good to show you this contraption. It's made up of all these wooden pieces and knobs, and I can do a lot of adjustments to it, but I can really support 21 by 21 is supported on a tabletop by it, and it's in the air, and totally hands-free. I can just work on it with both hands.
Do you know what a rug hooking frame looks like?
I'm sure
I'm
I've seen
wondering if
them.
it's real similar to that, because
Yeah,
I can sit at a table and I have both hands.
yeah, but it's got these clamps on to hold because it's on stretcher bars, it's a little heavy, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
And,
yeah,
and
I've
no-
worked for years like refining this, holding the, because really early on I realized my back and neck weren't going to take this work if it did, if you didn't get the right posture for it.
Karen, I'm just in awe of you. I just am awe of you. I mean, your work is just like, I can't even say how spectacular I think it is. I'm just in awe. And all those
Thank
little
you.
tiny seed beads. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I can still see them. I did this last year by a magnifying light to unknot knots. I can still unknot knots, but it's getting close.
I'm just in awe of you. I just think you're just wonderful.
Thank you.
I mean, just even the way you think and describe, you're just your imagination too is just amazing, along with your paintings.
Yeah, somebody was asking me in the gallery the other day, about a particular piece. How did you come up with this? And, there's a long history of making, and that just kind of builds. And, I'm always looking at things, and just random things stick in my head, and I can't begin to untangle how it happens really, but I guess
That's the
it's
real
just
artist.
building.
The real artist. It's just amazing.
It's like following the yellow brick road. Yeah, you just don't know where it's going to take you. Andrea says, I'm crazy over your mark making in these new pieces. The negative spaces created by dense beading is just fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Andrea has a show coming up next month, so you gotta go to the gallery for that.
Andrea and Lisa.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, we
the symbolism really throughout all the pieces since I met you when we started this gallery, your artistic voice is one of the most cohesive and vibrant amongst our partners, and distinctive. I don't know whether you link your symbolism to any other cultures, or whether it's just a wellspring from within yourself.
I think it's both. It's both. Um, I I was born in Alaska. Growing up, we moved all the time. We lived near Indian territory. You know, I was exposed to a lot of beadwork when I was very little. A lot of, you know, probably cultural stuff that is unusual to know. I don't know. We traveled a lot. Um, so there's a, and always have loved nature. I look at plants, I look at stuff, we were out sitting by the river yesterday, just, you know, this stuff is interesting to me.
Well, I've seen your landscaping and it's beautiful. I mean, you did the Berlin Cemetery for hand and knives, just lovely.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, that was a really good, it's almost an acre of pretty much open space, and what a design project, what an opportunity to figure out one, the kind of plants that should be there and how it's going to look, and going from looking at 17 inches by 17 inches to an acre is pretty expansive.
That's beautiful.
Oops.
Okay.
Hang on a sec. Someone wants to know, Kathy wants to know, where is the Berlin Cemetery? She would love to see it.
It's in Brunswick. I don't know if you know where Smoketown Brewery is.
Yes, I do.
Okay, it's right behind there. It's a the first known burial is 1810. Nobody's been buried there in 100 years, and it was in complete neglect up until about 5 years ago. And a big project was taken on to put headstones back, fix headstones. A lot of them had been relocated, and then a memorial was built to give them they're called orphan stones because nobody knows where they belong. And there was a 150-year-old sycamore that up to a few years ago was the biggest in the county, but now it's diminishing and others are growing, so it's not the biggest anymore. And there were a couple maples, but nothing else. So I did you know, about $15,000 worth of plantings. There was a lot of grant money involved, and so that.
Yeah, it's well worth everybody's to go see it. It's really really nice. And he gave all those bodies now have, you know, respect, what they deserve for,
Yeah,
you know, instead of nobody knowing who they are, and the planning around it is beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's a beautiful place to go in the neighborhood, right?
It's right up the
It
street
used to
from
just
me.
be a pass through, and now it's like you can go there and kind of hang out, look at stuff.
Well, it's so interesting to look at, you know, you could walk through and see the dates, if you can read them. Some of them are so old you can't read the dates, but
Yeah,
it's you've just done a lovely job up there.
yeah, that was a good project.
So there are more questions about Karen's show. It is up for the next 2 weekends. As Karen says, she will be there on Sundays and can guide you around. It's actually been a great show. I know a few pieces have sold, so if you want a Karin Birch original, you better get there soon.
What was the time?
Yeah.
What is it?
Any
The
other
gallery's open Fridays and Saturdays 12 to 8 and Sundays 12 to 4. And I'll be there on Sundays. There's 2 more weekends, and also I'm more than willing to open it up for people if those aren't convenient times.
Yeah, and I put the website once again into the chat. So if you want to get onto the website to find out more information about the show or about upcoming shows, it will be there.
Okay.
All right, well, it seems like everybody's asked their questions. Anything else left that you want to say, Karen?
Oh, I'm sure I forgot a lot of things.
Well, that's why people have to come to see you in the gallery, because you will definitely, be able to remember all that stuff and do and say it when you talk to people specifically.
Mhm.
So
Well, thank you very much, both of you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Virginia, and thank you, everybody. Mhm. Sorry we had the technical difficulty, but I think it worked out.
Good.
Sorry about the puppy, but
Mm.
Ed Pinks is beautiful work. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank
show is
you.